1 in 3 electric cars on Earth runs on batteries built by a single company. In just 15 years, it went from a startup in a Chinese fishing town to the backbone of the entire electric car industry. This is not Tesla and not a household car brand. Last year alone, this single company sold 661 gigawatt-hours of batteries, enough to power well over 10 million cars, and it made more than $10 billion in profit doing it. Its founder is worth around $58 billion, richer than almost every name you know in Silicon Valley. And outside the industry, most people have never heard of him. In early 2025, the United States Pentagon added his company to a list of firms it says are tied to China's military. And yet, that very same company helps build cars sold on American roads today. This is the story of CATL, and how a company from a quiet fishing region in China took control of the future of energy, while the rest of the world was looking somewhere else. Let's start with the one number that should be famous and somehow isn't. CATL makes roughly 39% of every electric vehicle battery on the planet. Not 39% of China's batteries, 39% of the world's. And this isn't a one-year fluke. It has been the #1 battery maker on Earth for 9 years in a row. Feel how large that is? Look at who's behind it. The second biggest maker is another Chinese company, BYD, at around 16%. The largest outside China, LG of South Korea, sits near 9%. CATL by itself is bigger than the next two put together. Now look at whose cars those cells end up inside. Tesla, BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, Ford, Toyota. The badge on the bonnet is Western. The battery underneath it, more and more, is not. The sheer scale is hard to picture. CATL employs around 130,000 people. It runs 24 battery factories and 6 research centers spread across the world. Last year, its revenue topped 400 billion yuan, roughly $60 billion, and it can produce more than 700 gigawatt-hours of batteries every year. That's not a parts supplier. That's the foundation an entire global industry is quietly standing on. It's also the world's biggest maker of one particular chemistry, lithium iron phosphate, or LFP. And that chemistry matters more than it sounds. LFP uses no cobalt and no nickel, the two expensive, contested metals that made early batteries so costly. It's cheaper to build, harder to set on fire, and it lasts longer. In plain terms, LFP is a big part of why a genuinely affordable electric car is even possible. And CATL didn't just ride that shift, it drove it. And here's the fact that should stop you cold. The company that did all of this basically did not exist 15 years ago. Today, it's worth more than $260 billion. So how do you go from nothing to a third of the world's batteries in 15 years without most of the planet noticing? The answer begins with one man, Robin Zeng, a physicist with a doctorate, born in Ningde, a coastal town in Fujian province that most of China had barely thought about. Before he ever built a battery for a car, Zeng built batteries for pockets. His first company, called a CATL, made the small cells that sit inside consumer electronics. In 2003, that company landed a contract that changed everything, the battery for a brand new gadget called the iPod. Apple came first, then Samsung, then a wave of others. Zeng had learned to make small batteries better and cheaper than almost anyone alive. In 2005, he sold that company to the Japanese giant TDK. He could have retired there, wealthy and comfortable, but he had already seen the next wave coming. He was convinced the next enormous market wouldn't be phones or music players, it would be cars. So in 2011, he spun out an entirely new company built around that single conviction. He called it CATL, and he planted it back home in Ningde. Here's the strange part. At the time, hardly anyone believed electric cars were a serious business. Zeng's gamble wasn't only that they'd arrive. It was that he should build vast battery capacity before the demand for it even existed. The logic was ruthless. Pour concrete and build the factories first. so that when the electric era finally arrived, the whole world would have little choice but to come to Ningde and buy. An early deal with BMW gave the young company credibility no one could argue with. Then, China's government threw its full weight behind electric vehicles, and demand detonated straight into the capacity CATL had already built and paid for. And that lit the flywheel. More scale drives cost down, lower cost wins more customers fund even more scale. Once that wheel started turning, almost no one on Earth could catch it. CATL is not untouchable, and here's the twist. Its most dangerous rival is also Chinese. BYD builds both the cars and the batteries inside them. And in 2026, its Blade 2.0 battery cracked 1,000 kilometers of range on a roughly 10-minute charge. So this story was never really China versus the West. It's increasingly China versus China, with the rest of the world simply buying whatever the two of them decide to make. Which brings us to the part that's genuinely uncomfortable for the West. The single loudest symbol of American electric ambition is Tesla, and Tesla has quietly leaned on CATL for years. Since 2020, the cars Tesla builds in Shanghai have run on CATL LFP cells. Tesla's giant grid storage product, the Megapack, uses CATL cells too. The dependence runs so deep that a Tesla battery plant on American soil is being tooled up using CATL-owned equipment and know-how. Because the real contest was never about who bolts the car together. It's about who controls what goes inside it: the lithium, the refining, the chemistry, the cell itself. Whoever owns that step owns everything downstream of it. And here's the number that redraws the whole map. Between CATL and BYD, Chinese companies now control roughly 69% of the entire global electric vehicle battery market. Control the cell, and you hold the industry by the throat. That is why this stopped being a business story and turned into a national security one. Batteries don't just move cars. They run drones, they back up power grids, they sit inside the systems militaries depend on. In January 2025, the U.S. Defense Department added CATL to a list of companies it says are linked to China's military. CATL flatly denies it. It calls the designation a mistake, insists it has never done any military work, and is fighting to be taken off the list. And yet, just months later, it raised $4.6 billion listing its shares in Hong Kong, the biggest public share sale anywhere on Earth that year. Blacklisted by the Pentagon and still rising. And CATL is not sitting still. In 2025, it launched a new kind of battery called Naxtra, built not from lithium at all, but from sodium, one of the most common elements on the planet. And on speed, it is just as radical. Its second-generation Shenzhou cell can add 520 kilometers of range from a single 5-minute charge, about as fast as filling a tank of petrol. Between abundant sodium and super-fast lithium, the one bottleneck everyone assumed would slow China down starts to lose its power. So step back and look at the whole board. If the future runs on batteries, and it does, from cars to homes to power grids to the enormous data centers now feeding artificial intelligence, and if one country's companies dominate the battery, then whoever controls the cell quietly holds a hand on the century. Which means the real question was never who builds the best electric car. It's who owns the thing inside it. And right now, the honest answer is a company from a fishing town in China that most of the world still can't name. If this changed how you see the electric car race, the next episode follows the one thing even CATL cannot survive without: the rare metals buried in a handful of mines and the quiet war being fought to control them. Subscribe, and we'll keep pulling the thread on who really owns the future.